This party started. Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are so glad you are here with us, and just by showing up, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to feature two rock star music executives who, among many accolades, have dedicated their careers to helping improve music industry opportunities for the underserved. I promise you will leave today smarter and more inspired than you arrived. Before we get started, let me please take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I run the music practice at Turnkey ZRG, and I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And please ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible during the interview. And please make sure that your chat is set to address everyone, not just the speakers. I want to thank our sponsors, for without their support, we could not keep this free. Special thank you to First Horizon Bank, Turnkey ZRG, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Tennessee Brew Works, Project Music, and Cushmaster's brand of CBD products. So let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome Curtis Warner. Born in Philadelphia, Curtis is an education consultant specializing in strategic partnerships and community-based nonprofits with a focus on the arts. He occupied a number of posts at the internationally acclaimed Berklee College of Music in Boston over a 25-year period. He joined the college as assistant to the president for education and community partnerships and finished his tenure as the associate vice president for community and government relations. He is the founder and architect of the popular Berkeley City music program that brings inner city middle and high school students from Boston and other affiliate organizations around the country to Berkeley for a collegiate experience. He served as its executive director for 23 years. In the fall of 2018, a full tuition college scholarship was created in his name. He holds a music education degree from Berkeley and a master's in education administration from Cambridge College. He is most widely known among his educational peers as a primary force in the planning and creation of the Boston Arts Academy, Boston's only high school for the visual and performing arts, for which he served as the planning team chair. From 1993 to 96, Curtis managed the Berkeley International Network, an arrangement designed to establish mutually beneficial relationships between Berklee College of Music and centers of music with an educational commitment to the study of contemporary music abroad. Prior to joining Berklee in 1993, Curtis completed a 17-year tenure with the Boston Public Schools as a high school instrumental choral music director, dean of students, and assistant headmaster for student support services. He is also an active drummer and performer. Curtis, so happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thanks, Thomas. It's great to be here. I gotta tell you though, I don't know if you want to get Sharon and I in the same room together.
Well, hang on a minute. I got you both in the same room, and I couldn't be happier. And joining Curtis today as our featured guest is Sharon Harris. Sharon started her career touring as a keyboardist for the R&B legend Barry White. She's also performed with a variety of artists, including Malcolm Jamal Warner, MC Hammer, The Cranberries, Jordan Butler, Al B. Shure, Doc Powell, Lord Nelson, Malcolm Jamal Warner, Luciano Pavarotti, and many more. She's a graduate of the Berklee College of Music and earned an MBA from the University of Phoenix. She also serves as a conductor of the music programs at a place called Home, APCH for short, a popular community youth center located in South Los Angeles. In 2004, Sharon founded Project Mused, a nonprofit agency providing arts education, performance, and programming. She facilitated and manages the thriving partnerships between APCH and Project Mused with Berklee College of Music, Music's Berkeley City Music Network. Boy, that's a mouthful. Sorry, y'all. Over 35 students under her tutelage have attended Berkeley summer programs on scholarship, while over a dozen students have received full four-year scholarships to Berkeley. Sharon is noted for training a roster of highly sought-after young musicians. Some of them can be found on stage with artists like Smokey Robinson and Aloe Black. Her students have also opened for the Black Eyed Peas, Diana Ross, performed with the Isley Brothers, Macy Gray, and others. She has been recognized both locally and nationally for designing and directing vibrant arts programming and developing stellar resources to support youth throughout the arts. Sharon currently handles all artists' logistics and tour management for R&B pop superstar Macy Gray, and together they have founded My Good, an organization to support families who lost a loved one due to police brutality. She recently released The Art of War for Creatives, based on her knowledge and experience, sharing many of the hacks that she used and has seen others use to gain mad success. Please welcome these two amazing rock stars to the smartest people in the room. Curtis, please take it away.
Wow. Well, Tom,
Wow.
I don't know how Sharon feels. That was amazing. I'm trying to decide if I believe everything you said about me. It's been a long, been
I
a long
believe
way.
everything I heard.
Ah, yeah. But first of all, Sharon, I think it's pretty easy for us to be the smartest people in the room because, except for Tom, we're the only people in the room. But
Well, there are other people here, we just can't see them.
yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. But Sharon, because really want to focus on you, and ultimately we're going to get to your book, you know, which I appreciate you invited me to write the foreword to. But how did we get in this room together? Really? I mean, think about it. How long have we known each other?
Oh my gosh, we're in 2021, about at least 21 years. At
Wow.
least, yeah, at least 20.
Gosh, that means I'm only 30. Man.
That's right, I was a child prodigy.
Yeah, okay.
I was 5 when I met you.
I'm sure you were. Do you remember, like, what was the first project we did together?
I don't remember the first project, but I remember the first time that you came to visit when I was working at a place called Home. And you and Lee Burke came to visit our music department. And I wasn't running the department at that point. And you know, and also I served at a place called Home. I was there for 17 years. So this was the beginning of my time at a place called Home. And you came in with Lee Burke, who was the then president of Berklee College of Music. And there was talk about a city music network. And you wanted to focus on inner city kids. And I just remember that very vividly. I remember you standing in the studio. We just had one room then. And that was my first remembrance of meeting you. And then you called me one day and you were like, okay, we're going to do this network. We would love to have you as the first network partner, which I was like, whoa, I you know, you just kind of step into something. Now I'm going to reel it back a little because as Tom mentioned, and as you knew, you know, I came from the world of being a touring musician. Right. And that's what I did for many years. I actually did not want to be a teacher. But at some point, I realized that the role that I played was really critical because there are different levels to teaching music. You can have a traditional teacher, or what I was in South LA, it was a lot more unique because the kids didn't have a traditional sense of music and of learning music. I came from playing classical at a very young age and played a bunch of instruments and just had a very just different thing going on. But for these kids, playing music provided something different for them. And what I realized, I mean, one day I was going to quit and I woke up and I was like, you know what? I can't quit. These kids need this because they're not me. They're not going to have my experience. And that's where you came in also. Because
well, you know what, Sharon, let me just interrupt you for a moment because I want to make sure that folks who are watching, listening, understand the significance of the job you were doing there. And, you know, got to paint a picture for them. That's right. That first time I came out was with Lee Burke. And
Yes.
at the time, you know, they called the area South Central LA. I think they call it just Central LA now. Am I right about that? Or?
I think it's South LA now, but it
South
was South
LA,
Central.
yeah.
It was
So they
South
call it
Central.
South
Right.
Central. And, you know, South Central had its reputation, whatever. But I remember the second time I came out, and I had Dr. Crystal Banfield with me, who oversees all of the city music and education outreach stuff at Berkeley now. And I remember, you know, I was kind of showing off, like, it was only my second time in LA, but I was acting like, oh yeah, I know the turf, right? So I said, oh, I know a back way to get in. Now, I don't know if you remember this, I turned down this alley right next to a place called Home, and we saw some action we didn't want to see. And I like backed out of there. And then we came into your facility and you said, Curtis, man, someone just got, you know, accosted. It was worse than accosted. But I remember these kids that you were working with lived this daily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really intense, especially at that point. We were just pretty much coming off of the heels of the Rodney King incident. There was a lot of gang activity. We had gang members that were in the center. I lost a couple of kids to gang activity, and because not that they were even doing anything. Sometimes they're standing in their yard, but it could be the association. I think there was one boy who his brother was in a gang. He was not in a gang, but the gang members saw him, and that was it. And you know, so it was really, for me to understand that music was a way for these kids to get out. And that to me was really a very important role for me to take. And it shifted my whole perspective. Like it was like a ton of bricks hit me one night, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this, because everything that I've amassed, my whole story, my you know, all of my experience playing and understanding the path to Berkeley, you know, and understanding that we have to meet these kids where they are and then kind of work backwards. So that's what I started doing. I started kind of, I mean, I would look at the national standards, I would look at the Berkeley standards, and I would go, okay, I have to figure out how to give them what they need, but they're not going to go the traditional route. It's easier when I have a 7 or 8 year old, because you can work with them differently. But with these kids, I had to kind of figure out, I mean, you remember a lot of them, you know, Kibla Delgado, who was amazingly talented, who I just saw not too long ago. I think we sent her there as a percussionist, and she ended up playing bass.
She came back playing
she
bass.
Was pretty mean on bass.
Girl. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But that's why, you know, you were so right for those kids. And that's why a place called Home was so right for the Berkeley City Music Network, because that's what Berkeley City Music was founded on first, just locally in Boston. And then I remember Gary Burton asked me if, you know, what do you think about, you know, expanding the network and to a network? He didn't know what to call it. And I said, well, why don't we call it a network? Because at Berkeley, at the time, I was managing the Berkeley International Network. And I said, well, why don't we just take the model and, you know, do it with city music? So I remember Catherine Goldwyn was there at the time.
Yes.
And so, you know, got to shout out to Catherine as well. But it really started cooking when you all became a part of the network. And then because you were the first charter member of the network, I think you participated a lot more with us in the expanding of that network.
Yes.
And, you know, I remember you doing faculty development for community, you know, based arts centers and things of that nature. But, you know, I wanted to ask you, what was your first introduction to music? I mean, can you remember that, you know?
Yeah, vividly. My neighbor, Diane, came home one day with a flute. And I was like, what's that? And she was trying to blow her flute. And I said to my mom, I said, I want a flute. And my mom says, you want one because Diane has one? I go, yeah. So I came home with a flute. And then the
How
next
old were you?
week,
How old
I
was
was, I think I was about 8 or 9. I was in 3rd grade. I remember I was in 3rd grade. Then the next week I came home with a violin because I found out there was an orchestra program at my school. And I grew up in Mount Vernon, New York. It's right outside of the city. We had a lot of the teachers that played, they were Broadway pit musicians, and they would come into the school system and they would rotate around the school. So, you know, the band teacher, Mrs. Richard, and her husband, they were there maybe, you know, once or twice a week. And then Mr. Stankarone and Miss Liss, they were the orchestra teachers, they would come in. So we also had a summer creative arts center. I went that summer, I was old enough to finally go, and I tried to play piano, but I found out about it late. So I walked in about halfway through. I could not figure it out. I struggled so much. And, but then because I started playing all these instruments, I started to pick it up and get really good at it and really understand, you know, my treble clef, my bass clef. So that was my early introduction. And then I always just played. I just always loved it. And in 6th grade, my parents gave me a piano for graduation. So then they were like, well, if you don't practice, we're going to get rid of the piano.
Oh, the old, we're getting rid of the piano. Yeah.
Oh my God, it got worse. It got worse. They were, my mother would sit on the couch and my friends would go out, they'd ring my doorbell. Can Sharon come out? No, she's got to practice. I had to practice at least an hour a day. I didn't even know that I was going to go into music, but my parents were like, you're not going to waste our money. They were so adamant about it.
Well,
but so that was my introduction.
Yeah, parents, you know, we were very fortunate, different times. You know, I'm a little older than you, but still somewhat the same era. And, you know, parents then, we had to take piano lessons. I mean, I wanted to play drums, and my father was like, yeah, but you're going to keep playing piano, you know. And I always find it interesting. I asked you that question because I find it interesting where the entry point is, you know, being a music educator.
Right.
I'm always looking at students and wondering where their entry point was to music, right, and then how they end up. You know, my entry point, actually, I was 4, and I got to give a shout out to my home skillets, my neighborhood band. I'm actually, people say, oh, he's from Philly. I'm actually from Willow Grove in a little neighborhood called Crestmont. You know, and I gotta shout out to all of those folks I miss so much. But there was a VFW drill team and drum corps, and I was about 4. There was this little boy, and you'll get the significance of this. You especially will. There was a little boy who was 7 years old, and he used to be out in front of the drum corps, and I can still play his beat to this day. And he would be strutting, you know, in the drum corps. And I wanted to be in it, but they said, you got to wait till you're 7. So 3 years later, the funding went away and the drum corps went away. So when I turned 7, I never got to be a part of that. But how much does that parallel what music programs are dealing with today? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, and for me, what I saw that I got out of music, when I really thought about all of the intrinsics and soft skills even that I got out of music, it was just amazing how I was always at the top of my class. My attention level was really great. I was able to focus really well. You know, my reading skills, my everything just was so enhanced. And I really attributed it to my involvement in music at an early age. And so I take that philosophy forward. And that's the other thing that I work on instilling, you know, with my young people, the young people that I worked with, and now the people that I mentor. Is like, you have the skill set because you're a creative. So let's just make sure that you focus. And I think there's a certain amount of awareness that you have to have.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that that's a big part of it.
I know also that, you know, there are probably a lot of people along the way. You had all kinds of stories for me. We don't have them all now, but I remember you talking about Albie Shore and Teddy Riley and I
Yeah.
remember seeing a picture of you and Albie Shore as basically kids, you know.
Yeah, I think we were
Um,
the picture, if it's the picture on Instagram, I think, yeah, I think I just maybe gotten out of college. Al was a little younger than me. And I don't think he had quite gotten his deal yet, but he was on his way to get his deal with Uptown Records. And, I just found I was in this really interesting chasm, coming out of Berkeley, because of course, we had, Kevin Eubanks, Branford Marsalis, Diana Krall, just such great musicians who were more in the jazz realm. And then moving back to New York, I had the people in my neighborhood. There was a group called Unlimited Touch that was kind of hot, and they had a couple of songs on the dance scene. And
mhm.
Philip Hamilton was a guitar player. He's playing on Broadway and with Anita Baker. And then we had Heavy D and the Boys, Jeff Redd, who helped discover Mary J. Blige. And we had Pete Roxy L. Smooth. I think they were a little younger. But Al was very significant, and Al introduced me to Teddy, and I was playing in clubs in Manhattan also.
Yeah.
So there was just all music, all these different types of music. And then I was going out and going to dance clubs, because there was dance music that was very significant in changing the culture of, I think, a lot. When you look at, that's where Madonna emerged, and Grace Jones was there. I used to go to Paradise Garage. So I had just really full circle. It wasn't just like, I'm just going to do this one type of music and that's it. And that just helped to widen my appreciation, not only for music, but my view of everything that I do. And it helped to enhance my, I just think, just my view on everything.
Yeah, I really wanted to touch base on that, encouraging any young aspiring folks thinking about the industry or music education. Do not discount the people around you when you're coming up and when you're coming through. I mean, if I talked about my biggest influences, people, they'd have no idea who they are probably. There was a group called the Star Tones, baddest group in the neighborhood. There was the Mandels, a group I played with. There was, my hero drummer was Eric Williams. Nobody probably knows who Eric is, but I'll never forget Eric Williams. And then, Tommy Campbell, the world-renowned jazz drummer, who's really, more like a brother, but my cousin, 3 years younger than me, and Tommy well.
Yes.
He came out of that neighborhood, and it's just those experiences, you don't want to discount them.
No, yeah. And they help to make you who you are, and they help to shape
That's
you.
the point.
And
that's the point.
Yeah, and they help, and those are your influences. Like, I remember there were guys I looked up to. So I just kind of looked, and I just grabbed on. I was always like a fly in the room. I just want to be there. I just want to check it out. I just want to understand how this works. It wasn't about, oh, I want to be a star. I want to do this. I wanted to do my craft. That was very important to me at that point. And then, and then of course I went on to a place called home, and, and then everything just went on and on. And
yeah. And you know what? I heard Tom refer to us as rock stars. I'm going to refer to you as a rock star for real. When I think about the things you've done and where your kids are, I was thinking, who I was thinking about? Sonny War, the artist up there in LA, Sonny War. And I remember meeting her at your place when she was 12.
12, right.
You said, sing Lean on Me for Mr. Warner. And she played the guitar and she sang the song. And now, Sonny's out there. A lot of people still don't know about her, but you Google her, you'll see she's out there,
Sonny has quite a footprint, and she has a huge fan base and just incredibly talented. But I just love her consistency and her conviction to who she is. And I think a lot of the kids that I got to work with, with Bryce Vine is another one who's, pretty sizable pop star now, but I was his first piano teacher. And who knew that he was going to have the career he has? And he ended up going to Berkeley. I remember writing a recommendation letter for him to go. So it brings me great joy when I see a lot of the young people, especially that I've worked with, just figure it out, because it's not easy having a path, having a creative path. And I mean, that's one of the reasons I wrote The Art of War for Creatives, because I thought about all of the other elements. There are some things that we just don't learn in school.
Yeah.
And
Well, I want to get, yeah, I'm sorry to cut you
we'll
off, because
get to
I
that,
want to
yeah.
get to the book. I want to get to the book, but The Art of War for Creatives, but I want to make sure there's some things, some basic things that folks hear and learn about you. What would you say just think back a minute, what were your various milestones along the way? Like I said, mine first, VFW.
Right.
Second, Eric Williams and the Star Tones. Like if you were to just do that.
I would say my first was the piano teacher I had before I went to Berkeley, Mrs. Elette Dixon. She was incredible. And for me, as little Black girl growing up in Mount Vernon, New York, she made sure that I had a really strong repertoire, that I not only understood European music, but I had a really firm understanding of Black composers who did, some ragtime. There was another composer, Nathaniel Dett, who wrote a piece called The Juba Dance that was almost like a stride piece. So she made sure that she introduced me to other composers that looked like me. I don't know that she knew that that was going to have an impact, but I thought it was extremely powerful because it wasn't popular music. I didn't grow up playing popular music like a lot of my friends. So that was number one. Going to Berkeley was definitely a huge influence because it was just opening my whole world. I was just very much in a box, and it was just like, oh my God, my mind was blown. There was just so much. Moving back to New York, playing in bands, and then moving out to LA. I was working at Pepsi Cola. That was really awesome. But one day I decided to quit, and I had $800 in the bank and decided to drive across country. So that was pretty huge and pretty crazy, but I did it. And I just got tired of the winters in New York, quite honestly. That was a big part of it. And, but moved out to LA, and I had been coming to visit some friends. So I just felt that I could have a chance out here. And I played with a couple of people, MC Hammer, and a couple of things came up, and, Jonathan Butler and a couple of other people. But then I got this great call to go meet this man who was looking for a band. And I went up to the Beverly Hilton and met him, and his name was Barry White. And he was just kind of speaking. Barry, and he was just meeting musicians. I never played a note for him. And then he just asked me if I had a passport. He asked me my sign. And he was like, okay, you'll hear from us. And I was like, all right, I don't know what that means. But, sometimes people say you'll hear from them and you never hear from them.
That's right.
But that was really life-changing for me in so many ways because of the integrity that Barry had as a musician. He never had electronic instruments. He always insisted, I want live strings, I want live horns. And he did everything with integrity. He listened to his shows. I mean, I really learned so much being on his platform. And I was the only female keyboardist to ever be hired to tour with him, which was really, I just kind of figured that out. I discovered that speaking to his musical director. He goes, you're the only female keyboardist he ever hired to tour, which I thought was a huge compliment. But
you
it was
toured for 7 years at least, right?
Yeah, from 95 to the end of his career. Yes, that's correct.
Man.
And he fired a lot of people, but he never fired me.
There you go. I wouldn't fire you either. He's smart.
Oh, thanks.
But I mean, go ahead. I was just going to say,
no. I was just going to say, it's just, it's more than just playing music. It's right. There are politics involved.
Yeah. So what's going on right now, and that you're doing? What are you doing right now?
Oh boy. So right now, really what I'm doing right now is I'm about to advance about 35 shows.
Yikes.
So right now, as you mentioned, I handle, or as Tom mentioned, I handle artist logistics and tour management for Macy Gray, which is really fascinating, and in a lot of work and a lot of detail, but I love it because it keeps me very, very sharp. And a lot of mental gymnastics that I have to handle in the process. And so I'm in the process of doing that. Also in the process, as you mentioned, I wrote The Art of War for creatives, and that was really because I had a student that kept asking me questions, and I was just like, I'm going to write something out for him, and it turned into a book, quite honestly.
So
So
let's talk about, yeah, let's really talk about the nitty gritty of that book. But I just have to let you know, so you're not in too much trouble. Your home squeeze, Dina Anderson's out there. I don't
hey,
know if you saw her,
Dina.
but you better shout out to her.
I know.
You know?
Hey, Dina, I
And
saw
then
Regina. I
I
saw
just,
some
yeah,
Berkeley folks which I'm really happy to see. So
yeah, there's a bunch of folks. And I just come from the National Guild for Community Arts Education board meeting, and our brand new executive director of the Guild, Quanice Floyd, she's out there. I left the meeting early and I see she just finished and jumped right on.
wow.
Just got a shout out to her and the Guild. Let's talk
Thank
about
you.
this book, The
Right.
Art of War for Creatives. Your book covers a number of different things. One of the things I know when I read it, it talked a bit about initial expectations that people have when they pursue a career in music. What about the obstacles and the barriers?
Oh, there are a lot. And those were some of the elements that I thought were really interesting. So because I thought about Sun Tzu, if you don't know Sun Tzu, he wrote The Art of War, which was about military strategy. But I really thought about how we could apply this as being people and to our art. So for instance, there's something about the enemy, conquer, or knowing your enemy. If you know the enemy, you can conquer your enemy. Well, sometimes you can be your own enemy. And I see so many creative people who are their own enemy, who have imposter syndrome. As we were talking the other day, we were talking about, the erroneous zones, the negative thinking that comes up, how people will procrastinate, how people will develop habits that don't serve them. And they can come from a variety of areas. It can come from your community. It can come from your family. It can come from your culture. I speak with people all the time who say, I'm not allowed in my culture to express myself, to say that I love doing this, to sing, to just be happy. So there are, definitely factors that can suppress who you are creatively. And when that happens, there's always this unhappiness that you see. How many people do you know that are bitter artists? People who quit what they're doing, who are just kind of not in the environment at all because of bitterness. And my intention was to help people gain some clarity on getting to know themselves better, getting to know their drivers, getting to know their trigger points, and how they can navigate if they want to live a life as a creative. Everyone is not going to be a superstar, but I think a big part of it is understanding what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. So I'm very big into how can we do a self-audit? Let's do a SWOT analysis. Let's go on. How do we do some mind mapping? How do we create goals around this? What is your plan? What is your vision? How do we define what we want to do, our objectives, and why we want to do it?
So Sharon, you're going really fast. I'm gonna back you up a little bit.
Back me up.
Back you up, because we got a lot of folks here. You and I, we start talking educator speak and corporate speak and all of that. But we have a lot of artists and just interested people out there. So I want to back you up. I'll back you up, but back you up to SWOT analysis.
Right.
Explain to folks what a SWOT analysis is and how they might approach it with respect to themselves doing that, self-audit.
Sure. So we have to think of ourselves as businesses. And when you're going to go into business, there are a couple of elements that you're going to look at. You're going to look at your vision, your mission statement, of course. And a SWOT analysis is really very critical. It's very simple to do. You're going to list out, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What opportunities do you have to overcome? And what is in your environment that may be posed as a threat? Like, if you're, all right, for me, I'm a keyboard player. I can go, oh, I can read music really well. That's my strength, right? A weakness is, I don't have that much, or when I was younger, I didn't have that much experience playing popular music. So that's a weakness, but it can be fixed. My opportunity is, I need to fix that. So I have a big threat from I'm going to go back to my Berkeley days. Diana Krall is my classmate.
Oh, bless you. Diana Krall was your classmate?
Diana Krall was my classmate. And I loved her. And I would go, and wait,
bad girl.
And Cyrus Chestnut and I shared a mailbox. So I mean, and that was, I could have looked at it as a threat, but however, it's like, how can I learn something from Diana? How can I learn something from Cyrus? And I believe I have something in my book about how I did learn something from Cyrus, and how I did look at, like, wow, he could potentially be a threat because he's a keyboard player, he's a piano player. But what I learned from him was there was a structure that he had. So I think when you look at these items that are threats, how can we reframe them? Because a threat can be, it could be intimidating. And you can go, oh my God, there's no way I can do that. Even a weakness, it could be intimidating. But it's important to take those moments and reframe them, reset, get your mind to think differently. So that way you can move past, because everybody has their place. Cyrus has his place. Diana has her place. I have my place. Everybody has their place. We all have things that we're very strong at, but I think we have to be honest with ourselves. I'm not going to say I want to be the best trombone player in the world, and I'm not picking up a trombone and I'm not doing the work, but you have to do the work.
Yeah. You talk about that intimidation factor is so huge with respect to art and entertainment, so huge.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I think about, musicians who've prepared their entire lives, and then they're afraid to launch.
Yes.
Afraid to launch. One of my students, she's one of the first to have thousands of followers on YouTube. And, she was on one of the popular TV shows. I don't want to call her out, but she was on one of those shows, like AGT or The Voice or one of those. And, I could see her just so out there, but she's, she likes to make songs in her bedroom, just sit there, and she does YouTube videos, and she's happy doing that forever. But there's a thing about that, I think the intimidation factor of being out there in the business, it's not always so friendly,
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I've definitely had quite a few run-ins, and you create a different skin. You just build a different skin. And, for me, I just a lot of times had to go back and think about, who am I? Where did I come from? What are my values? And having all those things in line, having that manifesto for yourself, so you can be very clear on who you are and what you will do, what you will not do. Even working with Macy, there are some offers that she gets, and she's like, I'm not going to do that. We don't have to jump at everything just because it's an opportunity. And we think, we have to weigh if it's going to be valuable or not to us. So, but at the end of the day, you have to look yourself in the face and say, am I happy? Or ask, am I happy with everything? You've got to do with what's right for you.
I'm noticing some great comments out there that are resonating with you. Rachel Bronstein, I hope, or Raquel Bronstein.
Yes.
I think she's saying, she said she heard a great term the other day, messy action. And she's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be perfect. Just start. Just start, you
Exactly. Just
know?
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am the least perfect person in the world. Well, I think so anyway. But what I do is I just dive in. I look at something. I'm like, I'm just going to get started. I'm going to do it. You know, sometimes we're building that airplane while it's flying. And that's just the way it is. I mean, it helps when you have a little more planning. You know, some things we have to plan a little more, but some things you can just kind of plan as you go. But I think planning is very important, but I see people kind of over plan. Well, I have to have this and this note is a little off, but that note may be the beauty of your whole piece. It's okay if it's authentic. How does it feel? I like going by feeling. I
Yeah.
want things to feel authentic. Like if I'm, whatever I'm doing, if I'm doing, working with pictures, I just had a photo session and I'm looking at photos. If I get a certain feeling from a photo, that says a lot because it's resonating. And I think it's important that we can find that place where we really resonate with what we're doing, but you can't get into too much perfectionism.
Yeah, yeah. And what about isolation? I mean, there's the bedrooms, scenario where you're making music in your bedroom and you're writing songs and doing YouTube videos, great. But there's a different kind of isolation that can happen with music as well. And that is, and I want you to speak to it a little bit, but like being afraid to meet someone,
Yeah.
just being
Yeah.
afraid to meet someone or viewing artists with these star glow eyes, because there's artists that are now friends of mine. Thank goodness we're friends. But when I first met them, I was afraid to, somebody gave me the number. I was afraid to call them. I remember when Sister Sledge was huge, really huge. We Are Family.
Right.
Young music teacher. I was using that as the anthem for my music classes and all that. And I'm in the grocery store with my mother. I met, I had come home from Boston, visit my mom. And, there's Kathy running up to my mom. Oh, Miss Hall, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, is this your son? And let me tell you, she was so regular that I didn't know who I was talking to. I was so embarrassed because afterwards I said, so Mom, who was that? She said, what do you mean? That was Kathy. I said, Kathy who? Kathy Sledge. What are you talking about? Man, it would have been nice if my mother told me they lived across the street and they were, but fortunately, this day, her husband, Phil, and I, we're friends. But sometimes folks just put people in this space that they don't even see themselves in.
Right.
And have you had that kind of experience or known people?
Yeah. I mean, as you know, I've met a lot of people. I've met people before I started working with Macy. I was always meeting people and I would just meet people in the most obscure places. And I remember, meeting Herbie Hancock really early when I was a teenager because he was working with Branford and he was always so kind and he knew that I was an aspiring musician. And I was just like, he's a person. Yeah, he's like probably the most amazing pianist in the whole world, but I never kind of got too starstruck. And just as a side note, Denzel and my brother were best friends growing up. So.
There you go. There you go. So you got broke in, but I have to tell these folks something about Sharon, okay? Because you're not only not starstruck, you were so matter of fact. The other day we were talking about some things and programs, and you said, "Oh yeah, I met Michelle Edgar," and I'm going, "Wait a minute, Michelle Edgar? That's really familiar to me." She said, "It should be. You introduced me." I'm like, wow, I haven't seen her in a number of years. Where'd you run into Michelle? It was at Paris Hilton's wedding, and because you are you, I just let it go. I let it go. I wasn't going to go, okay, everything's so matter of fact. But there's a reason that you're like that is because of the way you view people as people and recognizing the difference between the artist as the artist, like Chris was, right? Right. And the artist as person, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
mean, I go for
they
it.
want people to be friends and stuff for who they are as well.
Yeah, I mean, I go for integrity. I don't like craziness, and that was something that I think I learned probably when I was living in New York in the 80s, and I was around a lot of artists. There were a lot of people around, and I saw some of the behaviors, and I just made a very snap decision that if you're not the type of person I want to be around, I will not be around you. I don't want to work with you. I just don't, because I think that those things are important to me. I don't suck up to anybody, sorry, but I don't. You know,
They don't like it either. They
yeah.
don't like you to do that.
Well, some of them do. Some of them have that
know.
expectation. But I can tell you that's kind of been one of the things that has helped me, you know, that quality exactly with me working with Macy for so long, is that I tell her no. Like, because she'll say, well, I need to do blah, blah, blah. And I'll just kind of look at her and I'm like, really? Okay, no. You know, and it works. But I mean, I want her to have what she wants, of course, but sometimes, you know, you have to say no to people sometimes. And I think it's important because it shows that you care about them, especially if it's something where I'm like, you know, that just may not work. It just may not be worth your time. And I have to be discerning.
And I want this
that.
person to get thank you for that. I want this person to get their question in. There was only one question in the Q&A box. And it says, one thing I find among a lot of artists is being afraid to articulate oneself. In your views, oh, I guess it's both of us, how important would you say self-expression is as a tool for an artist?
I would say it's very important, and it's very important to be clear, and it's very important to be authentic to who you are. You know, always just, you know, speak your truth and don't be afraid to speak your truth, whatever your truth is. I think I just think it's just always more, you know, for me to just always be truthful.
Yeah, I would agree. How are we doing with time, Tom?
Got a few minutes.
We're
I see
good.
another question.
Good.
Yeah, I do see another question. Curtis, would you be able to, I'm sorry, I had technical difficulties and this morning.
Yeah, I'm not doing this one. Sharon, give us your best Macy impression, please. You know.
Okay, so I'm gonna. Hey, so, hey. A couple of times somebody, but I'm crying. So one time,
first of all, is it Raquel or Rachel Bronstein?
Rachel.
Yeah, we gotta get Rachel. I gotta meet Rachel. Is profound out there. Boy.
Yeah, Rachel. Yeah,
she's posing the stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I don't do a whole lot of impressions of her. However, one time I did do a voiceover for her of an imitation of her voice for Ways, and use that actually from a trip, ironically, from Boston down to New York. So, and she just cracked up. It was really funny. I think I nailed her on that. I might still have it. I think I'll share it out.
Yeah, Macy, I know that, you know, your job with Macy is, it's high energy, right?
Yeah.
It's high energy, and the whole package, I'm going to put it this way, the whole package from what I understand, and, you know, you and I have talked, we've talked when you're in Australia, we've talked when you're in New York, you know, that's a high maintenance gig, boy.
It is. And, you know, and I learned so much because Macy knows who she is, and she's demanding, and she should be demanding. And, but she's very, very sweet. You know, don't get me wrong. She's very, very sweet.
She is. I've met her,
yeah. But when she's in performance mode, that's her job. And she takes it very seriously. And, you know, she doesn't, and nothing goes by her. She likes things very particular, she has a particular order to things. And I just love that about her. I think it's really great. And it's a really great lesson on how to be, because you can't just slip up, and, you can't be sloppy. And so she's always going to be very consistent in that arena, especially.
One of the things that I think it was that Rachel who said it, I'm trying to remember out there because I'm looking and it's, everybody's going all different ways, but hey, Jennifer Tyler's there.
Hey, Jen.
But, she said you have to be prepared to work. This thing in the industries, it's people say, yeah, well, it's not all glitter. Absolutely right. Do you know what that really means? It's not all glitter. There's a saying, each one must prove what his own work is, and not comparison to someone else. And right. So, you look at someone, there's a drummer named Wilby Fletcher. He's no longer with us. Monstrous drummer, played with McCoy Tyner and all kinds of folks. And Wilby and I were in school together. And he said when he was in high school, he practiced 6 hours a day. And so I said, okay, that's the formula. I'm going to practice 6 hours a day. And I did over break. But what was I practicing? The wrong work, man. You really have to know what the work is and be willing to put it in.
Yeah, you have to know what the work is. You have to put it in. You have to have intention. And then, you have to be aware of, potential barriers, as we were talking about a little earlier, even, things that will come up. Are you shy, or do you know who to talk to, and how to overcome them, and figuring it out. But it's a puzzle. And I think if we, again, reframe, look at it differently, and instead of, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Okay, there's something for me to do. I just have to keep digging. I have to keep digging. Yeah. Because all of that it'll come to you, but you have to keep digging. You have to be resilient. You have to have grit. You have to just be committed.
Yeah. So all this stuff, all the things we're talking about, really your book addresses. Right. And, I read the first draft, second, third, first edition. We're on about edition 3, I think.
Yes, we're on yeah.
Yeah. But your book addresses this, but how can people get this book?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I've done this before. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
How do they get the book?
They can, the book is available online at SharonHarrisOnline.com. So it's my name, CHARYN Harris, HARRIS online.com. They can get the book. They can join my mailing list. At least once a month, I've been holding seminars. I had a great vocalist on the other day. We talked about musicianship for vocalists. Love sharing information. And so I hope that people can go on, check it out. I'd love to hear feedback, any type of testimonials. I think it's really great. And, and here's the other thing. I always look at when you write a book, of course, you want to know, was my book helpful? But what I also like to look at is, what can I do to be better? I'm always learning. I'm always learning. And Curtis, that's a great thing that I got from you, because you were always so inquisitive, and you would always ask me questions. But then when I came to you with something, you would just say, well, hold up, Sharon, think about this. And where are you going with this? And what are you trying to do here? And what do you want at the end? So, just helping me to think very thoroughly. So yeah, I want to.
That's a great ploy, by the way. If you don't know the answer, just keep asking them questions. That's what that was about. I didn't know the answer to what she was asking me, so I just kept throwing questions at her. But thanks, Sharon. No, that's good. And you are currently managing up and coming model, and I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about Miss London, because Miss London, she's the next. I'm waiting for the perfume line to come out.
Oh my gosh! So I'm a momager, and London. She's on Instagram as Earthling London, and she's very special. I mean, Curtis, you have known her all her life, you know, Uncle Curtis, and what a blessing. And I'm very excited for her because it's, you know, being for kids right now with what we're going through. She's, you know, 18, just turned 18, signed with JAG Models in New York and also Select Models in here in Los Angeles. She's actually in New York doing Fashion Week. I think it's Couture Week. So she walked in 2 shows, Advisory and Kim Shui, I think is how it's pronounced. And she's just amazing. I saw her walk in the last show and I was like, oh my gosh, that's my baby. And just, but also making sure that she's okay, teaching her how to handle finances, how to handle people. And my style is I need her to go out and explore a little, you know, because I think it's important, especially for young people, that they go out and explore, that they get to see what's out there a bit. And I don't try to tell her too much of what to do and what not to do. I didn't push her to go straight into college. I went into college at 17. I graduated by the time I was 20, but I wanted her to live because I recognize who she is as an individual and her capacity. And my whole thing is have your hustle on, have your grind on, always be on your grind. And this girl got called for one show, called up another designer and said, hey, I'm going to be in New York. I want to walk in your show. And the designer said, I need you to come and audition. And she auditioned, she went to the casting, and next thing I knew, she had 2 shows.
Yeah. But you know what I love about, you know, London and you as a manager and so forth, all those things you said are great. You see London in print or maybe on the runway, and you're thinking one way about London. And when all the makeup comes off and everything, you know, she's like, hi, Uncle Curtis. You know, she's still her age.
Right.
You know, and you have to be careful when you're working with kids and young kids. Just this morning on Tamron Hall, New Edition was on. And, you know, those are a shout out to my homeboys. But all those guys, you know, Ralphie in particular, Ralph Tresvant, he's a 9th grader at the high school I was teaching music. And, you know, it was something that, you know, we always were concerned about, like, will they still get to have their childhood, things of that nature. And so maybe one day, you know, you get them on your show. Yeah. Well, I love what you're doing with London.
Thank you.
I love seeing her success. And, you know, Uncle Curtis likes cars. People know that. So
yes,
she wants to, you know, buy me one. That's good. Another one.
Great. Well, I know Curtis. That's and she just might. But I know we need to wind it. We need to wrap it up. I want to thank Tom for having us and everybody. And Curtis, thank you for being such a great conversationalist. I hope everyone enjoyed themselves. And
I hope so. Yeah,
I hope so.
And I think there's a number of people that may be on that didn't want to write anything or say anything. But just thanks for coming out to hear us.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody for being here. And one more thing before we leave, I'm going to be launching a show on Sirius XM. And it's called the Sharon Harris Experience. It'll launch in the spring of 2022, between spring and summer. It'll be on Studio 54 Radio. So I hope some of you guys can jump on, but I really appreciate everybody being here. And yeah, please, you know, keep in touch and please make sure that you're on and following Tom and jumping on this platform, because this platform is amazing and there's so much information. I've been, Tom, on YouTube watching some of the replays, and I mean, this is great. Well, so thank you for doing this.
You're absolutely welcome. Let me jump in here and on behalf of the audience, simply say thank you to both of you rock stars. I meant it when I introduced you, and I'll say it again, rock stars. And the wisdom that you've shared today and the inspiration today is work hard. This ain't easy. And it's no accident that both of you are at the top of your fields, but I know that you have worked your butts off to get there, and you're an inspiration to all of us. So thank you. To the audience, thank you for your continued attention here. We'll be back next Thursday, about 10 days from now, and I look forward to seeing everybody then. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, get a shot, and be nice to each other.
Yes.
All
Thank
right,
you.
folks.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.